Is to help you analyze your personal statistics in POGs Baseball. First of all, you're going to need to go ahead and count all of the at-bats in your game data logs that you personally have had. So you're not going to count your teammates' at-bats in this. Every single thing you wrote down is an at-bat. Not the runs, but what happened. So every out is an at-bat. Every single is an at-bat. Every 2B or double that you wrote is an at-bat. Every home run is an at-bat. So you have to count every out and every hit, including home runs. So say, for instance, that you had, let's just say 56 at-bats. The next step is to count your hits and your outs. The hits and the outs in this case should total the number of at-bats. So your hits are going to be the singles, the doubles, the triples, 1B, 2B, 3B, and the home runs. Those are all hits. So let's say in your 56 at-bats, I had 14 hits. Make sure you count your hits carefully. In this case, the outs should total 42. How do I know that? Well, because 42 plus 14 is 56. But you should go ahead and count in your game log or your sheet and make sure that you did that correctly. Your batting average is the number of hits that you had per at-bats. It's just like your team batting average. So in your work zone, you should make a T-chart. On one side, hits. On the other side, at-bats. And you should start it out with the given information. So in this case, you've had 14 hits. You've had 56 at-bats. What you're trying to figure out is how many hits you would have in one at-bat. For your individual statistics, you can use a calculator. So what I'm going to do, you should still show your pathway though, because that's the work I'm going to be looking at. In this case, you're going to divide by 56 to get to one at-bat, and whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So you're going to do 14 divided by 56, and remember you can use a calculator for this. So I'm going to type in 14 divided by 56, and it's 0.25, and we typically go to 3 decimal places for average, so your batting average is 0.250. 250, we'd call that 250, and that's okay. We're going to rank you against all the other players. So a 250 batting average, we'll see where that falls among the rest of the league. Go through your personal statistics again and find out how many home runs you have. So say this player has 3 home runs. Now let me teach you unfortunately, this note says batting average, but this should actually say your slugging percentage. What slugging percentage means in the work zone is what percent of your hits are home runs. So the work I'm expecting to see when you write down your slugging percentage is if 100% of your hits were home runs. Now we're just looking at our hits. You have 14 hits. 100%, if that means every time you get a hit, it's a home run. You're very powerful when you hit the ball and don't miss it. Then you would have 14 home runs, if 100%. And because I look at my chart there and I could say that, but that's not the case. You have 3 home runs. So my pathway would be able to control this side by dividing by 14. And then I'm going to multiply. That gets me to 1. Then I'm going to multiply by 3. And of course, whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So I'm going to do 100 divided by 14 times 3. And once again, you have a calculator. 100 divided by 14. And that equals 7.14. And now I'm going to multiply by 3. And I'll just stop at the hundredths place, 21.43, because I'm going to round that. So my slugging percentage is 21.43%. That means over 21% of my hits are home runs. So when I hit the ball every about 2 in 10 times, it goes for a homer. That's pretty cool. For the next stat, let's say I have scored personally, I have scored, let's say 8 runs. I'm just looking at my personal run scores, so not my team's. Run shares is what percent of your team runs are because of you. So let's say I have scored, I'll write me, and I have scored 8 runs, and let's say as a team, we have scored 14 runs. What run shares means is what percent of your team runs are because of you. So we're trying to find out how valuable you are to your team. So to find out who is the kind of star on your team, who's generating a greater percentage of your team runs. Is it you or is it your teammate? So we're trying to figure out what the balance is. How good do you guys operate as a team versus one individual kind of carrying you? So once again, we're going to have to do a percent chart here. If you're responsible for 100% of your team runs, let me actually just do this by writing it. That means you would be generating all 14 of your team's runs. And I hope that's not the case because we want a more balanced team. So I'm going to get it to 1, and then I'm going to get it to 8 because that's how many, just to highlight this for you, that's how many of your team's runs you've generated. So my route for this is to do divided by 14, then times 8. Whatever I do to one side, I must do to the rest. So I'm going to do that same thing, and you have a calculator for this. So I'm going to type in 100 divided by 14 times 8, and that shows me I have accounted for 57.14% of my team's runs. So I'm a little more valuable than my teammate in this case, but we're pretty close. These are the stats that are going to go on the back of your baseball card. So you can talk with each other and help each other, but we want to see kind of the overview of how you are as a player.